We're just 2 races into the 2025 Formula One season, and rumors are already swirling that Red Bull Racing is looking to replace Liam Lawson. But is it Lawson's fault, or is Red Bull's second seat simply cursed? My name is Elizabeth Blackstock, and I'm the US editor over at PlanetF1.com, taking over from Sean this week to break down the biggest talking point from the Chinese Grand Prix. Yep, it's Liam Lawson. Is Red Bull's second seat cursed, or is Max Verstappen just that good? When Red Bull signed Verstappen and launched him from Formula 3 to Formula 1 back in 2015, it was clear that the team from Milton Keynes felt it had found a generational talent. Even with the Junior Toro Rosso team, it was obvious that this teenage driver was destined for the big leagues if he could just manage to rein in his temper and better manage his racecraft. And when he was promoted to Red Bull partway through 2016, he proved that by winning his debut race, the Spanish Grand Prix. In every year after, Verstappen consistently climbed up the Drivers' Championship standings until, in 2021, he took his first title. Ever since that first win in Spain, Red Bull Racing has organized itself around Verstappen, possibly to the detriment of the other drivers who have raced for the team. Back in February of 2023, Alex Albon, former Red Bull driver, penned an article for the Players' Tribune titled The Test. In it, he wrote candidly about his challenging experience at Red Bull, and he very eloquently described something that a lot of people already suspected. Red Bull builds its cars around Max Verstappen. In that article, Albon wrote, "This isn't to throw shade at anyone at Red Bull Racing or Max or anything, honestly. But the car is set up in a unique way that is built around the lead driver, and that's Max. And look, I totally get why. I mean, when all is said and done, he might be the greatest driver of all time, but he has a very distinct style of driving, and he likes the car set up in a certain way that's hard for a lot of drivers to sync up with. Of course, you can tinker and tweak your own car, but just the Red Bull in general is suited to Max's style." As he describes it, Albon is one of those guys who likes a lot of front end and nose. Compared to his teammates throughout his career, he says he's always had more nose. But on Red Bull, that was overwhelming. He likens it to playing Call of Duty with the sensitivity turned way up. In the article, he wrote, "There was so much nose on that thing that if you blew on the wheel, the car would turn." Now, if you're Red Bull Racing and you had hired one of the world's best and most promising drivers, of course you're going to build your car around him. But from the way Albon describes it, Verstappen is an outlier in the way he likes his cars. So that means that anyone who gets behind the wheel is going to have a huge learning curve just to get up to speed. Add to that the pressure that comes with racing for, and maybe even very publicly struggling with, a top-tier team, and the knowledge that there are always hungry drivers waiting to take your place, and you're in for a bad time. But how dramatically different has Max Verstappen's performance been compared to his Red Bull teammates? Has it always been this dramatic? Last year on PlanetF1.com, I tracked Verstappen's stats compared to every open-wheel teammate he's ever had all the way back to Formula 3 and into his earliest days at Toro Rosso. The results are pretty shocking. Verstappen has outperformed every teammate he's ever had in almost every single metric. Ever. Verstappen's most closely matched teammate at Red Bull Racing was Daniel Ricciardo, who also was his first teammate at Red Bull. But even then, the Dutch driver scored more points, won more races, finished on the podium more times, finished higher in the race more times, and regularly qualified better than his more experienced teammate during their 58-race stint together between 2016 and 2018. The only metric they differed on? Pole positions. Verstappen didn't score any, and Ricciardo nabbed 2. This is a critical era for Verstappen because this is when he began to ascend to first driver status. When he joined Red Bull Racing, 5 races into the 2016 season, he was still a teenager and he was partnering up with Daniel Ricciardo, a longtime Red Bull junior who had become the team's best championship hope after Sebastian Vettel left for Ferrari. But during this time as teammates, Red Bull clearly began to shift its focus away from Daniel Ricciardo toward Max Verstappen, and when it was clear that he was no longer the favorite, Ricciardo departed for Renault. Verstappen's next 2 teammates were Pierre Gasly and Alex Albon. Gasly, a Red Bull junior, was promoted up from Toro Rosso for exactly 12 races during his second year of F1 competition, and the pressure seemed to crush him before he ever found his footing. During that period, Verstappen scored 180 points. Gasly took a mere 63. When Gasly failed to impress, Red Bull dropped him partway through the year in favor of rookie Alex Albon. Alex Albon was just 12 races into his Formula One career, and he was given an impossible task: outperform Max Verstappen. Unfortunately, despite finishing his first season strong as a Red Bull driver, Albon clearly lagged behind the more experienced Verstappen, and he was dropped in 2020. According to Albon's article in the Players' Tribune, he felt proud of his performance, but F1 is a what have you done for me lately business most of the time. And when COVID-19 restricted travel and racing, Albon lost out on the critical track time he needed to get up to speed. After 26 races as Verstappen's teammate, he was dropped. At this point, it seems as though Red Bull realized something needed to change. Clearly promoting all these young drivers to the top team and expecting them to perform alongside a driver who was quickly becoming one of the best in the world was a losing task. So for 2021, Red Bull signed Sergio Perez. In signing Perez, Red Bull took a risk. It hedged its bets on a driver outside of its own junior program, albeit one with over a decade of experience in F1 to draw from. If anyone could bring the seemingly impenetrable Verstappen back down to reality, or at the very least, if anyone could play a consistent second fiddle, it would be Perez. Things started off strong for Perez. He helped the team secure its first World Constructors' Championships since the Vettel era, and in early 2024, he inked a contract extension with Red Bull almost immediately before a drastic fall-off in performance. Perez's future was already in doubt heading into the summer break, but Red Bull opted to retain him through the end of 2024 with the announcement that full-season rookie Liam Lawson would take over in 2025. Now here we are. It's 2025, and after starting just 11 Grand Prix in 2 years as a Daniel Ricciardo replacement, Liam Lawson is a Red Bull driver, and he hasn't scored a single point. Lawson is the first of Verstappen's teammates to be younger than the Dutch champion, and he also boasts a pretty formidable resume in the junior categories. However, he also joined the team during a distinct slump. Beginning with the 2024 Miami Grand Prix, Red Bull started to experience a fall-off in pace that its latest car, the RB21, has not rectified. Last year, Verstappen lost his chokehold on the top step of the podium as his car grew more challenging to drive. Red Bull struggled to introduce mid-season updates that could counter the improvements seen by McLaren, Mercedes, and Ferrari. The car was plagued by issues with balance, downforce, ride height, and the departure of critical minds like designer Adrian Newey. Those issues only seem to have grown worse over the off-season, with Red Bull losing its way a bit. Now, even Verstappen is finding the car to be a little too challenging to wrangle, and if he can't control it, well, it's impossible to think anyone else could either. Certainly not a driver with just 11 Grand Prix starts under his belt, who's racing a difficult car for the very first time. Liam Lawson never really had a chance. So is Red Bull Racing's second seat cursed? Has the back-to-back nature of a wet weather street circuit and a sprint race weekend simply just made it hard for Liam Lawson to get a feel for the car? Has Red Bull designed itself into a rut that even Max Verstappen is struggling with? Or has Red Bull's cutthroat nature finally come back to sting itself? The answer likely involves some of all of the above, plus plenty of factors we haven't even considered. But this is a story we'll be following all year right here on the F1 Word, so make sure to like, subscribe, and leave a comment with your own theories about Red Bull. I'm Elizabeth Blackstock, US editor at planetf1.com, and I'll see you next time.